Well, it must be cold today because my washer jets aren't working, so I can't really clear the windscreen. I'm sure there's some water in there, but they just aren't working, so oh well. Anyway, let me introduce you to my lovely Audi A3 Sportback. Now, personally, I love these Sportback designs. You know, I wouldn't quite describe them as an estate. They're officially marked down as a hatchback, so it's a slightly long hatchback. But this was the first diesel car that I have ever bought, and I like it. Before I bought this car, I was not a diesel person, but the torque that this car has is just great. When you compare this to its petrol counterparts, you know, this is way more punchy with that turbo and that diesel engine, just making it way more torquey. So I really have become quite a fan of these diesel engines, particularly these PDs. I mean, it has real nice pull. If you compare this to a 100 horsepower petrol, you know, it really isn't the same, the sort of acceleration that you get. I mean, for the value you get on a car like this, I think it's actually incredible, considering you're getting a really well built, you know, reliable Audi. You know, for like 3 grand, this car would sit about 3 grand if you were to buy it sort of retail, or you know, maybe a nice one from a private seller. So yeah, for a 3 grand car, 2010, 2009, whatever, you know, 100,000 miles, this is a good reliable car. It's got enough space in the back for you to do some haulage. You know, it's a really nice car for that sort of money. You could do a hell of a lot worse. I mean, there's just something about boosting around on a nice turbo diesel that's just really quite, you know, fun in a way. And I know this car is not designed to be a fun car. It's quite a heavy, you know, pretty much a state car in my opinion. It's not designed to be fun, and it doesn't feel particularly sporty, but there is something that I quite like about this car. You know, it feels very sturdy and well built. It definitely feels like it's nicely planted on each corner, which is something I do like. It's a sturdy and stable car, and it does give me a feeling of reliability and just sort of, you know, Durchsprungtechnik. Is that what Audi says? Something like that. So, you know, it's a well-built, well-designed car, and that's why you buy into Audi, because you're looking for a nice car. And, you know, what can I say? It drives nicely. It pulls nicely. You know, I do like my petrols that rev all the way up, so like stupid RPM, but you know, this is all you really need. You know, you don't want to do more than 3,000 RPM in this car. And oh my god, I really can't see anything, not just because my hair's in my eyes, but because the sun's in my eyes. I mean, the one thing that really impresses me about this car, you know, like, it's a 12, 13-year-old car now. It's done 100,000 miles, but as soon as you turn the key, you know, it goes. Like, it starts up really nicely, it runs beautifully. You can just tell that this car has superb compression. And for a car of this age and this money, you know, for it to just start up that nicely, you can tell that it has the Audi build quality. It really does. Now, I have done extensive work to this car. I've replaced the timing belt and all the brakes. The brakes, by the way, work absolutely beautifully. And this car has had a bit of money spent on it over the years. You know, it's not, hasn't been skimped out on. And let's feel some diesel pull. Oh yeah. You know, it's not particularly quick, but it's that torque and that acceleration which I just love, and you just don't get it from a petrol. You know, just taking it down the dual carriageway right now, it just wafts along. You know, I'm doing 70, and it's just driving beautifully, dead straight. It feels like a well-built car. It feels like it's nicely planted. Now, if there's one thing that this car is missing, it would be a 6th gear. I love a 6-speed petrol or diesel. I think that 6th gear is just so important. And you know, this car drives lovely, don't get me wrong, but if it had a 6th gear, it would be perfect. And this one is the 1.9 litre. Now, if you're looking at tax brackets and so on, this 1.9 litre is very good. It is 30 something pound a year, £2 a month tax. It's just absolute peanuts, you know, it's really cheap. It's really pulling. We're doing 2,000 RPM, and it's just, I can feel the acceleration. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not pinning me back in my seat. It's 105 horsepower, but with that turbo and that diesel torque, it feels like a real joy to drive. It really does. And you know, it drives so beautifully. It's got the Audi build quality. Now, for anybody thinking, oh, I have 3 grand, oh, I should go and buy you know, something cheap and tinny like an Igo or something like that, I really think that you should go for something from a good quality brand like Audi, because you're just getting so much more for your money. This car drives so much nicer, and considering that it'll do 40 miles per gallon, I'm pretty sure this car does about 40 miles per gallon, and you know, for that such cheap tax and pretty cheap insurance too, I don't see why anybody would want a more tinny car. I mean, I suppose if you live in a city and you just want to get around the city, then yeah, that you may want a smaller car, because this is a Sportback. It's basically an estate. So I can see why you may want a tinnier car, but at the same time, in this sort of price range, I think a car like this is always going to be a good deal, because it just feels premium, it feels well built. You know, this one has been looked after quite well, hasn't been meticulously maintained, but it has been maintained to a good standard. You know, it has quite a lot of service history with it, and of course I bought it with a fair few problems, but now it is driving absolutely beautifully. I replaced the cam belt myself when I did certain other jobs, and you know, it really runs just beautifully now. So if you're looking for a new car and you're thinking about an Audi A3, I think this generation is probably at the moment the best value generation you can go for. The interior in here is honestly lovely. This steering wheel is beautiful. It's a leather steering wheel. It's got perforated leather on the sides. It might be a sport steering wheel actually, I'm not quite sure. Now the one thing I really like about slightly more modern generations of cars is the fact that the heating works so well. And for the winter, you know, that's something you really want. I mean, you get in this car, you put the heater on, and before the engine's anywhere near up to temperature, you know, the heating is coming through warm. So you can keep nice and warm in the winter. You know, it's really comfortable in here. The seats are nice, you know, they're really nice and adjustable. You don't have to worry whatever shape or size you are, you will fit in this car. There's loads of leg room, there's loads of space between the pedals. So that definitely isn't a concern. I can imagine even in the 3-door variant, which isn't as big, I still can't see anybody having any trouble. There's loads of adjustability. That really isn't a concern with this car. And the only real thing that goes wrong with these is injectors, and this one had a blown turbo, which I've also had replaced. So it's just a few little bits and bobs, your normal diesel stuff, but as long as it's maintained, these engines are they're an absolute godsend. If the car has a 6-speed, it would be perfect then. You know, people forget that diesels like to be driven. It only really makes sense to buy a diesel if you're doing a fair bit of motorway miles. If you're doing under 12,000 miles a year, then, you know, it's not so worth getting a diesel. I mean, even in 3rd gear, I'm doing 1200 revs, and it feels good. I mean, it handles nicely too. I'm taking these corners pretty extremely, and it handles nicely. For a car of this size and weight, like I said, it just feels planted. And I think cosmetically, this car still looks really modern. You know, it more than fits in with the modern crowd. The previous generation that looks very similar, but just a little bit more dated, you know, that car is starting to show its age now. But this car, you know, I feel this really fits in these days even still. And the good thing about it is that the underpinnings of the car are still quite old-fashioned. Now, some people might look on that as a negative, but it really isn't. You know, like the engine and stuff is all tried and tested. You know, they've had it for years, if not a couple decades. If you're interested in an A3, I definitely think you should go and take it for a test drive, because honestly, if you haven't driven a car like this before, if you've maybe driven more budget cars, less premium cars, I think you will really enjoy the way that this car drives and the way it feels. So what have we got? We've got tick on modern interior and, you know, exterior design. We've got tick for reliability. We've got a tick for enough power. Even though it's just 100 horsepower, it has enough torque to, you know, pull you out of any junction in a rush if you need to. It's got a good fuel economy, it's really good on tax, and it's good on insurance. So, you know, if you've got £3,000 sitting around and you just want a decent workhorse, there's definitely the BMW alternatives to this car, like the 3 Series, 320d and stuff like that, and I don't have much experience with those, so I can't really comment. But all I can say is I don't have any complaints. This is a damn good car for the money, and it's reliable, it's strong. You know, like I say, it ticks a lot of boxes. And if you've got this sort of budget to play around with, £3,000 for a car like this, it really does feel like it's worth more than £3,000, I must say. I mean, really, I can't think of any downsides for this car. It's not that expensive, you know, it's not unreliable, it's built well. I really can't think of anything to say that's bad about this car. It doesn't really have any downsides. You know, I mean, if you want a good car, just get an Audi A3. Simple as that. So I just want to thank you all very much for watching my video on this lovely 2009 Audi A3 1.9 diesel. I think this is a really good car. I think for this sort of price, you know, you really can't go wrong. And I know I say that a lot about a lot of cars, there's a lot of prices, but I really think for £3,000, you know, this car it's a reliable workhorse. It's just a solid car, it drives really nicely. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you enjoyed my quick thoughts on this car. Please make sure to drop a like and talk to me down below in the comments, and I am very interested in reviewing cars. So if you have a car that you would like me to review, I know it's a little bit of a wide shout of somebody with 200 subscribers, but I am interested in making more and more videos, and I am interested if you have a car that you would like me to review. I'm based in Shrewsbury in Shropshire, in the Midlands, and yeah, I look forward to making more videos, and I hope you have enjoyed this video and it's been of use to you. Let me know your thoughts on this car down below. Thank you very much for watching and hope to see you again next time. Goodbye.